We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. Because today, we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
Well, greetings, friends and fellow citizens, and welcome to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio broadcast and podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this show. I'm also the president of the We the People Convention, and this show is paid for, the airtime is paid for by the donors to the We the People Convention. And we thank all of them for their donations. And I particularly thank you for the wonderful notes of encouragement that I often get with your donations when you mail in your check, or, and then obviously when you can email me at info@wethepeopleconvention.com. Thanks to all of you for your support. For those of you who are listening on our 5-station radio network on Saturday mornings throughout Ohio, welcome to all of you. If you are new to the radio show, you need to know that this show is dedicated to protecting and defending our personal individual freedom and liberty and prosperity, and to protecting and defending our U.S. Constitution and our nation and our values. So we talk about what you and I can do, what the listeners of this show can do to help affect change that is positive for us, that makes our lives better, makes us more free, makes us more prosperous, makes our country more successful. And that has been a pretty tough job recently, because we are under attack, as you'll learn in this show. And we're going to talk about how we're fighting back, and we're on offense, and we're winning. And it's really very exciting and very encouraging. The rest of you are watching on our podcasts throughout Ohio and throughout the country and literally throughout the world. You can do that by going to wethepeopleconvention.org and clicking on the little yellow button that says podcast, and it will tell you, how you can watch the podcast. You can do so on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org. You can do it on YouTube. You can listen to the audio on iTunes. You can watch it on TV, on Roku and Amazon Fire Television, and any way you want it, on your phone, your computer, your laptop, your TV, and your radio. You can hear this show, and we thank all of you who listen, to the program and who tell others about it, because that's what this is about. It's about giving you information that you will not get anywhere else, and giving you opinions you will certainly not get anywhere else. So thank you to everyone who's watching the show. We really appreciate your support. As you know, if you've been listening the last few weeks, we are really working hard to help win the 2020 election with our partners, the NRA. And I just can't tell you what a great job all of you are doing. The hundreds of you who listen to this show, who are people who support the We the People Convention, we are just doing amazing work. I heard this week that in the month of August, we made over 1 million text messages. And that's when most of you, the majority, probably 2/3 of the volunteers, didn't even sign up until the We the People Convention, which was held on August 15th. We are doing things in all over the country. I've told you on previous podcasts and radio shows that we've told the NRA that we will find the volunteers. We will get the manpower that they need to make sure we don't just win Ohio, that we win the surrounding states and we win the battleground states. And I've been told that because so many of you have signed up, and there's not enough, there's never enough. I want you to sign up. I'm going to tell you how to do that in a second. But because so many of us have signed up, the NRA has increased the funding twice since we started, and they are now letting us work in what they call second and third tier states that, looks like we're going to win, but we want to make sure we're going to win. And I know for a fact, because my wife is doing the texting, that we were working in Texas all last weekend and made hundreds of thousands of text messages into Texas to help make sure that we really bring out the vote there and win Texas handily. And we're doing other states, Michigan and Indiana, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, you name it. So how do you do that? Well, if you're listening on the phone, write this number down, 703-708-4664. And if you just text the letters P2P, the letter P, the number 2, the letter P, to 703-708-4664, you will be enrolled to start doing texting. Peer-to-peer is what P2P stands for. You'll be able to text. If you want to knock on doors, and we need more people now to start knocking on doors, because the way this works, we're texting out to people and we're saying, do you support President Trump and maybe this senator or this House member? Because we are endorsing people in those races, okay? And then you get text messages back, no, I don't, yes, I do, or I'm undecided. Then the undecideds get put into the database and they get mailings from the NRA. And then eventually we'll go knock on their doors and try to persuade them to vote for President Trump and for the congressional and Senate candidates in that area. Then we'll maybe do another text before the election to see if we can get their vote. So you text to 703-708-4664, the letters P2P for peer-to-peer, or D2D, the letter D, the number 2, the letter D, to door, right? Pretty simple. And last week I talked to you about the fact that the NRA is going to ask some of us from Ohio to cross the state line and go into Pennsylvania and knock on doors. And they're going to be doing that later here in September. They're going to pay for your hotel, your meals, your travel. If you want to do that, text the letters PA, like Pennsylvania, PA, to 703-708-4664, and you'll get in on that, and that'll be terrific. And I can't thank you enough, because folks, this is really important. This is working really, really well, and we've got to keep doing it. So there's never enough volunteers. Keep going. We've also talked about our Trump train road rallies, and I've given you some examples of that. And you're also familiar with these boat, our ramadas, these things where they decorate their boats and drive all over the lake or down the river. And there's a bunch of those going on. There's one that's on Facebook, a Trump parade in Cincinnati, Ohio on September 12th. They've got 10,000 people registered to go do this. They're going to be on 275, the outer belt of Cincinnati, and these 10,000 people are going to go get on the exits both ways with their cars and trucks and vehicles, motorcycles, all decked out with Trump stuff, and they're going to drive around the outer belt of Cincinnati on September 12th. And you can find them on Facebook at Trump Parade Cincinnati, Ohio. And if you want to get in on a sine wave, a boat, sine wave, a Trump train road rally, the place to go is freeohionow.com. freeohionow.com is where you want to go. You can find by county, it'll tell you what's going on and who's doing it and how to get involved with it. So that's really been going great. On September 12th, they're going to be all over this state. And if there isn't one in your county, go to freeohionow.com and sign up. If you're watching the podcast, I'm showing you a picture of one of the Trump barn billboard signs that we put up in Lorain County, and you'll love it because this billboard is as big as the exit sign, the green exit sign on the interstate. And folks, I just can't tell you how exciting it has been to put up these barn billboard signs. I think we're close to 50 locations around the state. I think we're close to having 1 million impressions a week, which is just awesome. We have signs on I-77 down by Marietta, on I-76 by Youngstown. We've got signs on lots of state routes that are very busy, high traffic areas. I'm looking for more signs, and these are big signs. These are barn size signs, 10 foot by 30 foot, 20 foot by 40 foot. We're looking for locations that got high visibility. We've got a sign down near Columbus. It's on Route 3, a very busy route north of Columbus. We've got some down by I-75, down by Dayton. But we're looking for more signs in the Columbus, Cincinnati area. So if you want one, just send me an email at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org, and that will be awesome. Okay. The other things we've talked about is that we need to get people to register to vote. And you can do that at voteohio.gov, voteohio.gov. Please be doing that. It's really important. And, I really think it's going to be a big game changer in this election. So go to voteohio.gov, and you can do that on your phone to anybody that's not registered and get them registered. But I have really, really big news, and that is that we had asked Frank LaRose, the Secretary of State, before the We the People convention, that we thought if he wanted us to recruit poll workers, he needed to put together a dashboard on the Secretary of State's website where we could see how many poll workers are needed by county, how many do they have, and how many more do we need. And he did it. He announced it on Thursday, and it's awesome. And I want you to check it out. If you go to the Secretary of State's website, you could probably find a link to it, but the actual website is pollworkertracker.ohiosos.gov. So pollworkertracker.ohiosos.gov. And on this, it's really cool because it breaks it out, not just by how many poll workers do they need and how many they have, but as you know, you're supposed to have so many that are Democrats and so many that are Republicans. So it breaks it out by how many they have for each of those by each county and how many more they need. And I want to give you one tip because it's a little confusing when I first looked at it, and it's new, so they're working out some of the bugs, but it works. It's great stuff. Notice that at the top of this, there's a search box, and if you just put in your county name, it'll get rid of all the other counties and show you what the situation is in your county particularly, and you can know exactly how many more people we need in your county so that we can have what? We can have in-person voting. That's what we want to have. And in making his announcement today, he said this is the first ever poll worker tracker that he thinks has been available anywhere in the United States. And that's how great this is. In an effort to continue providing voters with unprecedented levels of transparency, Secretary LaRose is providing Ohioans with weekly poll worker updates as reported by the 88 county boards of election. They're going to update this every Wednesday, as much as I can tell. And the goal for committed and trained poll workers, the goal is 55,588. The minimum they need is 37,000. Just about 37,000. However, they currently have 33,577 committed. And I got an email from a lady in Cuyahoga County who said, I want to be a poll worker. She got an email from the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections that said, we're currently reviewing 4,000 applications. Yeah, you go, girl. All you guys are doing that. Because they only need like 3,800 poll workers, and they have 4,000 applications. So it's awesome. So they want to get 26,635 more people to do that. And if you go to voteohio.gov, you can sign up there. You can also contact your Board of Elections directly. But this is just great news, and we thank the Secretary of State for putting this information out. It's just awesome. And now we've got our dashboard, and that website again is pollworkertracker.ohiosos.gov. pollworkertracker.ohiosos.gov. Check it out. It's pretty cool. Now, as we go into this election, we've got two themes that I want you to keep in mind, okay? As I said to you, this is war. This is not just an election. We are under attack, and I'm going to give you evidence of that will make you not doubt that we're under assault, okay? There is no Democratic Party. I've told you that. It's been taken over by the communists, and they're being funded by the Chinese, and I'll give you some proof of that in a minute. But the bottom line is, we need to do two things. We need to get everyone who votes for Donald Trump to vote down ticket. We don't want any Democrat to win anything. I don't care if they're running for dog catcher, let alone president, let alone Congress or House or Senate. Now, I've taken some heat from some people because I've endorsed some Republicans who are rhinos. They're not with us. But here's the truth, folks. We can't do anything about that. The bottom line is 75 to 80% of the people that Donald Trump endorses hate his guts and are not with us. We can't fix that right now. All we can do right now is decimate the communist Democrats with as many Republicans as we can. Then, after this election, we're going to focus on primarying the people who are rhinos. So if you see me endorsing people that you don't particularly like, it's because we are focused on defeating every Democrat we can. The second thing we're focused on is making sure that anyone who would think about voting for a Democrat is embarrassed to do so, that they understand that they should not do that. No decent American should do that. So the way that we get people to vote down ticket is by putting out slate cards. And if you're watching the podcast, I'm putting up a screen from Ohio Value Voters where they've already done a good job of putting out which House and Senate members, U.S. House and Ohio House and Ohio Senate members, that they're endorsing. So we're going to be trying to do that as we get closer to the election, and we're going to use the Trump Train road rallies to help put those out. So you got to make sure your friends know when they say, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump, you got to give them a piece of paper that says, well, you got to vote for the rest of these people, okay? Particularly the judges, and we got 2 big Supreme Court judges, Judy French and Sarah Kennedy, that we got to get elected to keep control. Do you imagine how bad it would be to have the Democrats, the communist Democrats, in charge of our Supreme Court in Ohio? We can't let that happen. You got to tell everyone who the Republicans are. And so, you just go to your Board of Elections and get a sample ballot and then mark them and show people. Okay? Now, I said to you that I was going to talk about the fact that that the Chinese are behind all this, and I posted a story at WeThePeopleConvention.org this week where Trevor Loudon, who's from New Zealand, but he's been around for about 10 years, he really helped us in the Tea Party in the past. He did a video that explains the war China and Russia are waging on the U.S. through the Democratic Socialist Party, BLM, Antifa, and more. Okay, now you need to go watch that video because it's about 35 minutes and there's question and answer. Okay, go to WeThePeopleConvention.org and look for Trevor Loudon's picture under the articles. But I want to play you just a clip from that so you get a feel. Who is behind the looting, the rioting, the destruction in our cities? Who's behind that? Listen up. He's about to tell you.
And nobody's calling it for what it is. This is a Maoist communist insurrection. The group behind this attack is called Freedom Road Socialist Organization. Freedom Road Socialist Organization, FRSO. Now, Freedom Road Socialist Organization is a pro-Chinese Maoist communist group. They follow the Chinese line. They support China. They support North Korea. They support Venezuela. They've sent 5 delegations to Venezuela in the last year, and they hate America. Now, you'll be shocked to learn that it was Freedom Road Socialist Organization that also started the riots in Minneapolis a few weeks ago after the killing of George Floyd. Well, now it's a gentleman, Mr. Blake, who's been shot, but it's exactly the same communists, the same front organizations, the same red t-shirts with FRSO written right on the front of them, and still our media hasn't picked up on this. And if you go to the FRSO Facebook page right now and scroll down, you will see video footage of the protests, and right smack in front of hundreds of people are 3 banners: FRSO, National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, and SDS. They are 100% leading this, and the man standing in front of them, egging them on and stirring them up, is a man called Kobe Guillory from Chicago, who is a member of both Freedom Road Socialist Organization and the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression.
So that's just a clip. He goes through a whole lot more, but you need to understand that these are organized groups. This is not grassroots anything, and these are not people protesting the death of anybody. This is all communist, warfare. That's what it is. And if you still don't believe me when I talk about, the Democrats are on the side of the communists, right? Here's a picture I'm putting up on the website, that you can see, but it's a post that has Alexander Soros, the son of George Soros, and Kamala Harris are pictured here after their final interview in the Biden VP vetting process. This was the moment, Soros said, when I decided she would be the pick. I told my dad and he agreed. The rest was just a formality. George Soros, through his son, is handpicking the VP for Joe Biden. Okay? So, again, George Soros, we know that he's trying to destroy the United States. You hear his name all the time. Okay? But if you still think this is just politics. Yeah, this election is about politics. Yeah. Okay, listen to this. Yeah, did you hear what they're saying? They're saying death to America. This isn't Iran. This is from Oakland, California. There's another video from Kenosha, Wisconsin, where these BLM Antifa people are chanting death to America. Do you understand? This is in our country. This is evil incarnate. They must be defeated. There is no reasoning with these people. Okay? So tell your friends who think there's a Democratic Party that there is no Democratic Party. It has been taken over by the communists. And if you vote for any Democrat, for any office, then you are voting to aid the communist takeover and destruction of the United States. Don't be a commie. Don't vote for any Democrat. Be an American and vote for Donald Trump. Okay? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back. You're listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Radio Show, and I'm Tom Zawistowski.
Buckeye Firearms Association is Ohio's #1 gun rights organization, protecting the rights of Ohio's 4 million gun owners. And you can get our weekly gun rights newsletter free. Receive breaking news and urgent alerts on gun laws. Stay up to date on self-defense and shooting sports. Discover pro-gun activities and events near you. Get your free gun rights newsletter now at bfanews.org. That's bfanews.org. bfanews.org.
The Buckeye Institute was founded in 1989, and we're the longest-serving free market think tank in the state of Ohio. My goal is removing barriers to prosperity that have been put in place by government. We want for Ohio to be the freest and most prosperous state in the country.
The Buckeye Institute is a source of common sense ideas that will have an impact on the nation as well as the state of Ohio.
All right, and I failed to mention that Trevor Loudon will actually be in Northeast Ohio on September 11th, Friday, September 11th in Hartville. And if you would like to go to that, send me an email at info@wethepeopleconvention.org, and I'll send you a link to where you can buy tickets. They don't have their link to get there is not something you can easily remember. So just send me a note saying, hey, I'm interested in Trevor Loudon tickets at info@wethepeopleconvention.org, and I'll send you the link for that, okay? The next segment, I want to talk a little bit about voter fraud, because I know all of you are concerned and you should be concerned. And I posted on the We the People Convention website a very, very interesting story from the New York Post, which was the confessions of a voter fraud operative. I was a master at fixing mail-in ballots. And in that article, a top Democratic operator says voter fraud, especially with mail-in ballots, is no myth, and he knows this because he's been doing it on a grand scale for decades. He basically talked about everything from steaming open ballots that they've collected from individuals and putting fake ballots in, to bribing poll workers, to getting post office people to help them throw out ballots that are being put in post office mailboxes in Republican areas. You know, I mean, it's an article you got to read. It's really in depth, and it's something you got to read. So go to wethepeopleconvention.org and read the story. Whistleblower says he's been conducting voter fraud for years in New Jersey and tells how easy it is to do with mail-in ballots. Okay, so that's for your entertainment value, which is horrendous. There's a story that came out from a poll this week that said a majority of American adults intend to vote early in person or by mail this year, according to new data by the NBC SurveyMonkey weekly tracking poll. 52% of adults say they will vote early, with 19% saying they will vote early in person, which you can do 30 days before the election here in Ohio. And the other 33% saying they will vote by mail early. About a third of adults, 33%, say they will vote in person on an election day, and 11% say they may not vote at all, which is interesting. There's a stark difference in voting plans when broken down by party affiliation, however. 54% of adults who identify as Republican or lean that way say they will vote in person on election day, while just 22% of Democrats say they will do the same thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. We have a crisis brewing, folks, and we're trying to do everything we can to avoid this. But I want to play a clip from AG Bill Barr, who was on CNN in a contentious interview, and he basically says we're playing with fire. Listen to this clip.
This is a sort of cheap talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then,
and until this
administration haven't proved it.
Let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there have been in the newspapers, in networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in. But elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. For example, we indicted someone in Texas, 1,700 ballots collected from people who could vote. He made them out and voted for the person he wanted to. Okay? Because that kind of thing happens with mail-in ballots, and everyone knows that.
But there are individual cases, but as far as widespread fraud, we haven't seen that since.
Well, we haven't had the kind of widespread use of mail-in ballots that's being proposed. We've had absentee ballots from people who request them from a specific address. Now what we're talking about is mailing them to everyone on the voter list when everyone knows those voter lists are inaccurate. People who should get them don't get them, which is what has been one of the major complaints in states that have tried this in municipal elections. And people who get them are not the right people. They're people who have replaced the previous occupant, and they can make them out. And sometimes multiple ballots come to the same address with a whole several generations of occupants. Do you think that's a way to run a vote?
Well, the only thing I'm saying is that so far we haven't seen widespread fraud. But
so far we haven't tried it. Well, and the point is,
but a lot of us. There are several states that only have mail-in voting, including a Republican.
Well, this is playing with fire. This is playing with fire. We're a very closely divided country here. And if people have to have confidence in the results of the election and the legitimacy of the government, and people trying to change the rules to this methodology, which as a matter of logic is very open to fraud and coercion, is reckless and dangerous. And the people are playing with fire.
So I think you can see how emotional he is and how adamant he is that this is just all wrong, folks. And it's intentional. And like he said, this never happened until this president became president. Now, you have to vote, by absentee ballot. And I do want to make a note here too, because I've had calls from a bunch of you who are confused about Ohio, where you're getting letters like this one that came from President Trump's campaign, okay? And in it, it's basically encouraging you to vote absentee. But you're also getting letters, I got a letter from the Secretary of State, and it's encouraging us to vote absentee, okay? But here's the bottom line. All of those, if you look at the back of them, if you look at the card that you're sending in, it says it's going to the Board of Elections. That's okay. It's not a ballot. It's your ability to request an absentee ballot. That's what we have in Ohio. We're not doing what AG Barr is talking about in that video. So If you filled out one of these and sent them into your Board of Elections, you're going to get your absentee ballot because you requested one around October 3rd, which is when they can start accepting absentee ballots. But there's no problem that multiple people are sending you things, so stop panicking. Okay, I'm getting all these cards like these are fraudulent. You're not sending them to these organizations. If it goes to the Board of Elections, even if you filled out the form more than once, they're only going to send one out, and they're only going to send it out to the address that's registered. Okay, so don't be confused. But that's what they're trying to do, is confuse us. Okay, and they're going to do everything they possibly can. There's a story out on Wednesday. Barr suggested that law enforcement could be sent to polling places over criminal threat. And what does he mean by that? The president is saying we're going to send sheriffs and police officers to the polling locations because you think Black Lives Matter and Antifa are above being outside of polling locations on election day to try to keep Republicans from voting in person? You just heard the stats, right? You just heard that 52% of Republicans are going to go vote in person. So what's Antifa going to do? They're going to try to intimidate you. And that's what AG Barr is saying. We're going to take action about that. And then you got the Radcliffe, who's the new DNI, Director of National Intelligence, and he basically has been briefing the Congress on any kind of election interference that's coming from Russia or China or whatever. And what are the Dems doing? The Dems are leaking the confidential classified information minutes after he gives the briefing. So he said he's going to not brief them orally anymore. They're going to do it written to the Gang of Eight and try to cut down on that people are getting it because these sleazeballs have no moral values. These are congressmen who are violating the law wantonly, willingly. It's disgusting. And the point that I've got, and I raised this with Judicial Watch. I talked to some of the staff at Judicial Watch, and I said, listen, first of all, why isn't Election Day? The Congress sets Election Day. This year it's November 3rd. Why is it that they can have absentee ballots come in after Election Day simply because they were postmarked before Election Day? And the answer I got was because that was put in place to make sure the military vote came in. So what they're doing is they're taking advantage of that to create chaos after Election Day. So then I wrote to them and says, can we file suit to get the Supreme Court to say no election results can be announced until all the mail-in ballots are in? Because what's going to happen is, and there's a story out that you may have heard, that this one data group said that Trump's going to win a huge landslide election on Election Day. And then when all the absentee ballots are counted and the mail-in ballots are counted, Biden's going to win. Because you know why? If you announce the elections on November 3rd, if you announce the results, that just tells the Dems how many phony ballots they need to create in each state. It's outrageous, and we got to stop this. It's frustrating, but we're working on it. We're trying to stop it. Okay, I want to get to a few more stories here before we wrap up the radio show. There was good news in Ohio this week. A group called Ohio Stands Up filed a lawsuit against the state of Ohio to remove the unconstitutional state of emergency. Determined to restore the constitutional rights that have been stripped away by the state of Ohio's unjustified actions regarding COVID-19, Ohio Stands Up has filed a suit in Northern District of Ohio Federal Court to remove Governor Mike DeWine's emergency order. The group is represented by attorneys Thomas Rentz and Robert Gargaza. We believe that the response to COVID-19 has been the greatest fraud ever perpetrated on the American public, Rentz said. The objective of this legal action is to force the state to honor the Constitution and stop the lies, manipulation, and fear-mongering intentionally being promoted by public health officials and elected officials. Ohio Stands Up is a grassroots organization composed of Ohio citizens who are focused on restoring the rights of Ohio's 11.69 million residents and educating the public about the realities of the COVID-19 data. The state of Ohio has consistently lied to and manipulated its citizens from the earliest stages of the pandemic, Gargaza said. We insist that this nonsense end, our rights be restored, and that the actual truth be shared. Good job. Let's see how that goes in federal court. There is no state of emergency. This is a fraud being perpetrated by Mike DeWine. Why? I think it's because he's a never Trumper. I think that they're trying to make sure that you don't vote. They're trying to destroy. I mean, here we are. It's not even, it's September 4th when this is coming out. The election isn't until October 4th, November 3rd. 2 months away. How do they know you have to wear masks on November 3rd? They don't know anything. This is just disgusting. And so, as you know, we talked about last week, I got pretty hot about it because John Becker in the House, filed for impeachment against DeWine. And of course, everybody poo-pooed that, right? Because they're all elitists and they can say, well, those poor, little people, they can pretend they can impeach the governor, but how dare they? Yeah, well, ABC 6, Fox 28 did a poll regarding this on August 26th. And the poll asked viewers if they think Republican Governor Mike DeWine should be removed from office. Normally, they keep their polls open for only 12 hours. This time, they kept it open for 24 hours, and they got 18,420 votes. The final results of the poll were as follows. 80% of the people said, 83% said that DeWine should be impeached, and 17% said he should not. Yeah. So what do you think, Governor? You think you're doing the right thing? Not a chance. You think people are going to vote for you again? Not a chance. John Husted, you think you've got a future in politics? Not a chance. People are angry. You're going to pay the price sooner or later. Speaking of people who should pay a price, though, Larry Obhoff, the coward that is the Senate president, I've called him a coward in writing for months because he's done absolutely nothing. He put out this really CYA press release over the weekend that said that the Senate had put forward 10 bills to help rein in the power of the governor and stop this what's going on with the director of health and all that stuff, and that the House didn't accept those 10 bills. Right? And that was the problem. And what that said to me was that they're going to try to blame Larry Householder, the Speaker of the House, who's under investigation for taking $61 million in bribes to pass the first energy bill, okay? But it's all like the dog ate my homework. We saw the true colors of the people in the Senate this week when they told us, and I told you, that they were going to vote on Senate Bill 311, which reins in the director of health, reins in the governor, puts some controls on them so that our representatives could have a say in what they do in the future. I was told we're going to vote this out of committee, then we're going to vote on it the same day or the next day, and then we're going to send it to the House. Yeah, they voted out of committee. And now they say they're not going to vote on it for another 2 weeks because there were some amendments added in committee, and they can't read those amendments in a day. No. They have to take 2 weeks to consider before they vote. You're a bunch of cowards. You haven't done anything. We have lost just billions of dollars in our small businesses. We have lost, jobs. We're going to lose these businesses because of your inaction. And this just shows it because, hey, another 2 weeks. So what? You can get by, right? Another 2 weeks. Your business is barely holding on. Yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks. There's no hurry. Okay, we'll get them later, folks. We've got to win this election. So if you're listening on the radio, we're going to wrap it up right now. Make sure you go and text into the NRA at 703-708. 4664, either P2P, D2D, or PA. Write to me at info@We the People Convention if you want a big barn billboard sign. Go to freeohionow.com if you want to get your Trump train going on September 12th and you want to do sign waves, do all that stuff. But go to the website, look at the Trevor Loudon video, and understand we are fighting the communist Chinese who are trying to destroy our nation. And you're going to hear more if you listen to the podcast what I mean about how serious a threat this is. We are headed for World War III, people. Don't doubt me. Follow the podcast. If you're on the radio, go to wethepeopleconvention.org and watch the rest of the podcast. And you're going to find out some really serious things that are happening that are very, very dangerous to our country. And we're going to have to stand up and find the will to fight back. So you're listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio show and podcast. We'll be back with the rest of the podcast after this break. We thank you for joining us this week. We hope you'll listen again next week. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. All right, and we are back, and we're glad you're sticking with us for the podcast. We've got a lot to cover. We've got some very serious things to cover. If you've been watching the show, if you go to the website, if you get our emails, and if you don't, please go to wethepeopleconvention.org and enter your phone number and your email in the front. And again, why do I ask for your phone number? Because they're blocking tons of our emails, and I can send you a text with a link to the emails so you don't miss them, okay? But if you think back, you've seen this graphic before. It says, why is this vicious racist beating not being prosecuted as a federal hate crime? Write the DOJ and demand it. Go to www.justice.gov or call 202-353-1555. We put that out when the guy was kicked in the head in Portland. He wasn't killed, but it clearly was a hate crime. And we wrote a letter, to the DOJ, and to the Civil Rights Commission, demanding that they investigate that as a hate crime. And I'm happy to tell you that we've gotten Jim Jordan involved. We've gotten Anthony Gonzalez, our congressman up here in Northeast Ohio. They are now trying to talk to the DOJ to push this issue. But while we've been messing around with this, what happened? Yeah, a Trump supporter was assassinated in Portland. Now it is truly a hate crime. And I'm going to play you the video of that right now, because you're going to see that they identify that this is a Trump supporter and they kill him because he's a Trump supporter. So there you saw it, folks. The man was gunned down in cold blood. He was murdered. And you can see online, there's actually video where they are shouting, "We've got a Trump supporter here. We've got a Trump supporter here." And they literally assassinate him. And the person that did that is a guy named Michael Reinoehl, Reinoehl. And this guy is a murderer. And you know what's really upsetting? He hasn't been arrested. He hasn't been arrested. This guy has not been arrested. It's clear as a bell. The police, everyone knows who this guy is, and he has not been arrested. And yet the guy, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was in that self-defense shooting in Wisconsin, he was arrested the next day, right? This guy is still not arrested. It's been almost a week. Why is that? This is unacceptable. And that's why we're writing the letters that we're writing. And as you know, we wrote the letter to Eric Dryband, who's the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Director, and to Peter Kirsanow at the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. What's going on here? Where's the equal justice? And it's really upsetting to all of us because it just doesn't make any sense. Now I'm going to play, something about Kyle Rittenhouse because his lawyer was on with Hannity, or with I think he was on with Tucker Carlson, and listen to what he says about this Kyle Rittenhouse. Because again, where are the charges against the left, not just the right?
Absolutely. The New York Times has a report and has analyzed this very closely. There was a shot that was fired as Kyle was retreating, actually, from a mob that had become enraged that he was trying to put out fires that the arsons had set, and because he was trying to protect property. The mob became enraged. They began screaming that Kyle needed to be killed, and they were going to kill him. They started relentlessly hunting him as prey as he ran down the street attempting to retreat. As he ran out of room to retreat, A shot was fired from behind him. The New York Times has clearly shown that. Shortly after that, the individual, Mr. Rosenbaum, who was leading the attack on him, set upon him immediately, began to assault him from behind, attempted to take his weapon, take his firearm, and Kyle, when he turned, he instantaneously had no choice but to defend himself by firing because he was in imminent danger of serious bodily harm or death.
So that was the first shooting. So that happened.
That's right.
He called a friend on the phone, said, I think I've killed someone. And then he begins to run. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, actually, let me clarify. Let me clarify that. So actually, Kyle actually attempted to stop and to check on the individual who had been shot. He did make a call to his friend. He said to his friend that he had shot someone. He immediately had to retreat from that area because the mob that was the rioters that were chasing him, who had witnessed this, immediately called him out for the shooting, which of course wasn't self-defense, but they called him out for the shooting. They began saying that he needs to be craniumed, that he essentially needed to be killed. So he began retreating back down the street. He began running back down the police line to try to get to safety. Again, the mob relentlessly and viciously pursued him. And he was struck as he was running from behind by one of the rioters. He tripped and fell to the ground. And then one of the rioters was right over him with a Glock. The other one was attempting, and both of them were attempting to disarm him, to take his AR-15. He was successful in being able to fight that off, and he had no choice but to then immediately defend himself. He was at fear of serious bodily harm or death. He fired and disarmed the individual who had the Glock by hitting him in the arm. He shot and killed the other person who was attacking him. And I got to tell you, one thing, if you really think about this, Tucker, in this war zone, in this chaos that was occurring in a city in America, in the middle of Wisconsin, Kyle, the only individuals that Kyle shot were the three individuals that were attacking him and putting him at risk of serious bodily harm or death. This is a 17-year-old kid. This is amazing.
So let me ask you this, and I think that's a fair point. He didn't shoot indiscriminately, and I'm taking your word for it in the first one because I haven't seen the video, but in the second two, I have seen the video. One guy attacked him, the other guy was pointing a gun at him. Here's my question. He shot that man in the arm, and the man backed off. That man survived. That man has not been charged. He came at a 17-year-old with a gun. Why has he not been charged?
So here's a question that I have, Tucker. Where are the charges for aggravated assault against Kyle Rittenhouse? Where are the charges for arson in our cities? Where are the charges for rioting? Where are the charges for crossing state lines? And where are the charges against the people who are funding this activity and who are financing it? And why is Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old lifeguard who is attempting to protect the businesses in his community and attempting to help wounded protesters and was protecting his own life while Kenosha was burning, why is he the one sitting in jail tonight as forces within this country sickeningly attempt to find a way to bring harm to him while he's in detention?
It is sickening.
So I would hope that concerns you. Where are the charges? A guy points a gun at this 17-year-old kid and he isn't charged. What's the deal? And I've said to you, if you follow me, if you've been following me on my emails for the last 5-10 years, and most recently the last year and a half, I've said to you, the most important thing in our country right now is equal justice under the law. Because without equal justice under the law, we are not a nation at all. And right now, we're not a nation. And I'm really sick and tired of it. And you and I, we've been writing, we've been doing petitions, we've been talking to the DOJ, we've been talking to the White House, but talk isn't enough. We're not going to stand by and just get gunned down by these people. It is not open season on white people. That ain't the right message. And I'm really disappointed. And then President Trump had this to say when he was interviewed by Laura Ingraham, okay? And I understand why he's saying it. Listen what he had to say.
Do you want your supporters to confront the left-wing protesters, or do you want to leave it to law enforcement?
No, I don't want them. I want to leave it to law enforcement. But my supporters are wonderful, hardworking, tremendous people. And they turn on their television set, and they look at a Portland, or they look at a Kenosha before I got involved and stopped it. Or they look at Chicago, where 78 people were shot last weekend and numerous people died. Or they look at New York, where violence is up by 150%. It's up by a number that nobody, and people are leaving. They're looking at all of this, and they can't believe it. They can't believe it, whether it's my supporter or not.
But you don't want them showing up.
No, I don't. Well, it's a peaceful protest. I mean, they were protesting.
Listen, that's fine. He doesn't want us to confront these people. But what if they're confronting us? What if they're coming to our neighborhood? See, we're not the ones doing the confronting. The guy that was murdered in Portland, he didn't threaten anybody. The guy that was, the kid, 17-year-old kid in Wisconsin, he was there protecting property. Now, there's either equal justice in the law, AG Barr, or there's not. So far, there's not. And we're getting to the end of our ropes. And I keep telling every elected official I talk to, you're playing with fire, because we're not going to just sit by. We are not going to just we're not going to become second-class citizens, whether you like it or not. And if you won't defend us, we'll defend ourselves. And if you think people are dying now, yeah. You wait and see. This has got to end. We don't want violence, but we're not going to just be patsies. And the president needs to wake up. And he needs to wake up Bill Barr and all the rest of them. This can be done without us, without you and I having to shoot people. It can be done by, like Trevor Loudon explained, who's behind these riots. Why aren't they in prison? He named the guy from Chicago that's running this. Why aren't we using RICO to lock him up? Why? There's something seriously wrong here, folks. There are people who are plotting the overthrow of our government, and they're in our government. They're traitors. They should be hung by the neck until dead. This is no joke. Millions of people are going to die if we don't wake up. So you and I have to keep screaming. We have to keep raising our voices. We have to do everything we can possibly do. And when I ask you to do something, please understand that I'm doing it because it's got a chance of success. I will not waste your time, effort, or money. That's my standard before I ever ask you to do anything. But it's really important. And so you say to yourself, where did this all come from? Okay? What is this all about? And it's, where does this hatred come from? So I posted a video on the We the People Convention.org website where Tucker Carlson interviews this guy his name is Christopher Rufo. He's a research fellow at the Discovery Institute. And he basically has done this research about this critical race diversity training that is being imposed upon the workers in our federal, state, and local government. And so this thing was appalling. You got to go to the website and watch the video, okay? And this guy details how white employees in our government are being sat down in chairs, and I know this for a fact because I know people that have been forced to do this, and they are being told that because you're white, no other reason, you're a bad person. That's what they've been told. That's how sick this is. And so we wrote a letter, and I'm going to read you the letter that I wrote to the White House saying, I am writing to offer my voice and that of our thousands of supporters in Ohio and surrounding states in support of the plea that was made on Tucker Carlson's show last night by Christopher Rufo, research fellow at the Discovery Institute, asking President Trump to immediately issue an executive order ending the critical race theory-based diversity training being forced upon federal employees by left-wing groups, including the admitted Marxist Black Lives Matter group. I cannot express strongly enough our belief that this destructive practice must be ended immediately, and I will ask the president consider going one step further than even Mr. Rufo's request. While this disturbing practice has been used by the Obama leftists to destroy America's values among government and employees and our military since 2008, it is also clear that they have been doing the exact same thing in our schools and in our corporations. Our organization would ask that the president issue a separate executive order or issue a ruling through the U.S. Department of Education withholding federal funds from any school or school district or college or university that implements similar critical race theory-based diversity training for teachers and or students. Why are we allowing Marxist indoctrination in our schools and universities and using tax dollars of patriotic American-loving taxpayers to do so? We urge the president to take this step as well as to do so immediately. There is no way that we can stop this coordinated communist attack on our nation if we do not first stop funding their efforts and giving them the ability to execute their evil plans. I then go on to talk about if they can figure out some way to stop what's going on in our corporations because of what we just talked about 2 weeks ago about Goodyear, where Goodyear's putting their employees through this diversity training, where you can support Black Lives Matter, a Marxist group, but you can't say all lives matter or that you support the police. And notice, we all noticed that Goodyear said, well, we respect the police and our employees can support the police, but they did not renounce their Black Lives Matter support. And so I asked the president to think about, could we put in government contracts? And believe me, Goodyear has government contracts that we say, if you get a government contract, you can't do this Marxist indoctrination. It's unbelievable. And in our letter that we wrote about the shootings the shooting or the death in Portland and the guy that was beat up in Portland, our friend Peter Kirsanow was on that letter because he's with the Civil Rights Commission. And so then he sent me a story where he asked the mayor of Seattle to halt the whites-only diversity training that he says is racist. Commissioner Peter Kirsanow said the internalized racial superiority for white people program developed by the Seattle Office of Civil Rights may run afoul of the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which bars separating employees by race in any way that adversely affects their workplace status. This is nothing more than singling out people of a particular race as class enemies and forcing them to abase themselves before the reigning orthodoxy, Kirsanow said in Tuesday's letter. In the old days, we call this totalitarianism. More simply, idiocy. I urge you to end such training. Thank you, Peter Kirsanow, for standing up. But this is the problem. We cannot allow this. What is so hard? If President Trump can just do an executive order that says you can no longer do this training anywhere in the federal government. Ladies and gentlemen, in that video, the guy talks about one person, we've got $5 million of our tax money to tell all the white people in our government that they're racist and that they're bad. What the hell? Call the White House, demand that the president file this executive order. Write to them. My God, we're not asking for anything that's hard. We can't even do the simple stuff. All right, I'm going to take a minute to calm down. We're going to take a little break. You're listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio show and podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and we'll be back after this break.
This is Jordan Seculo with the American Center for Law and Justice. At the ACLJ, we are committed to fighting the deep state and protecting freedom, the right to life, religious liberty, and fighting for the Constitution. The ACLJ has experienced tremendous success in litigating cases at all levels of the judiciary, from the federal district court level to the Supreme Court of the United States. We have offices in Washington, D.C., Jerusalem, and all around the world. You can find out more about the ACLJ and join us by visiting aclj.org.
Did you know that the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio is the largest statewide life group in the state? Are you tired of the compromised approach to pro-life legislation that has been the status quo for far too long? Since 2017, the efforts of the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio has changed that approach, closing loopholes and making pro-life laws enforceable. Visit rtlaohio.org or call 440-668-4049 for details.
All right, we're back for our final segment, and we've got some interesting stories to cover. And one of those stories is that Trump lands major endorsements from Democratic mayors in Minnesota. And as you'll see later here in this segment, polls are showing that Trump has taken the lead in Minnesota. Perhaps this is why. A number of Democratic mayors from Minnesota endorsed President Donald Trump for a second term on Friday. Like many in our region, we have voted for Democrats over many decades. We have watched as our constituents' jobs left not only the Iron Range, but our country. By putting tariffs on our products and supporting bad trade deals, politicians like Joe Biden did nothing to help the working class. We lost thousands of jobs, and generations of young people have left the Iron Range in upper Minnesota in order to provide for their families with good-paying jobs elsewhere. Today, we don't recognize the Democratic Party. It has moved so far to the left, it can no longer claim to be advocating for the working class. Listen to that. Listen to that. The hardworking Minnesotans that built their lives and supported their families here on the range have been abandoned by the radical Democrats. We didn't choose to leave the Democratic Party. The party left us. The letter signed by Virginia Mayor Larry Cuff, Chisholm Mayor John Chiappa, Ely Mayor Chuck Novak, Two Harbors Mayor Chris Swanson, 11th Mayor Robert Valzadovich, and Babbitt Mayor Andrea Zupanchek states. Listen to this final paragraph. Yet 4 years ago, something wonderful happened. Donald J. Trump was elected president of the United States. He stood up to China, implemented tax cuts, and fought for the working class. Now, 4 years later, the Iron Range is roaring back to life, and for the first time in a very long time, locals are hopeful because of this president's policies and willingness to fight for us, the mayors continue. Lifelong politicians like Joe Biden are out of touch with the working class, out of touch with what the country needs, and out of touch with those of us here in the Iron Range and in small towns like ours across the nation. I'd call that a pretty powerful endorsement, folks. Wouldn't you? That's pretty cool stuff. And I'm going to talk about some polling that backs us up when I close this show. I want to talk about this story next, though. And this is interesting because Mark Zuckerberg came out this week and said Facebook will suppress Trump victory claims after election. Okay? And basically what they're doing is they're trying to put their finger on the scales in the upcoming presidential election. Facebook has announced it will suppress what it calls premature claims of victory by candidates while failing to identify what that means. So that means they're going to try to interfere with the election. You and I are not surprised by that, right? We just talked about the absentee voting, the mail-in voting that Bill Barr is so angry about. They're going to try to create chaos. We're going to have to try to stop them. I'm not sure how we're going to do that right now, right? I mean, I talked to you about trying to get, a lawsuit to make it, to me, you should vote on election day. If you vote by mail, I can't stop that. The states can decide how they vote, but it should be on election day. The only votes that should be counted are on election day. But this nonsense that we're going to do this after the election, and then Facebook is saying, Trump's going to claim he won, but we're going to stop that. Well, that's why you and I aren't on Facebook and we don't follow Facebook. That's why we're doing the Trump Train road rallies and the texting and the Barn Billboard program to get around these clowns. Because they're not on America's side. They're trying to change the election. We're not going to let them. Here's another story that you just got to know about. Because again, was it reported to you? Do you hear this anywhere else? I keep beating on this because I need you to understand how important this is. It's critically important to you and I, okay? Here's the deal. China has the world's largest Navy, and it's getting better, the Pentagon warns. The Department of Defense says in a new report to Congress that China now has the world's largest Navy, at least in the number of battle-ready ships. China has the largest Navy in the world with an overall battle force of approximately 350 ships and submarines, including over 130 major surface combatants, the report says. In comparison, the U.S. Navy battle force is approximately 293 ships as of early 2020. The comparison isn't necessarily qualitative. For example, the U.S. Navy has 11 massive nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and bases across the world, while China has just 2 non-nuclear aircraft carriers and lacks a significant overseas presence. Okay, the report comes as U.S.-China relations plunge over Chinese concealment of the COVID-19 data and over the central government's elimination of political autonomy in Hong Kong and human rights abuses against the Uyghur minority. On Wednesday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo imposed new rules on Chinese diplomats in the U.S., requiring that they seek official permission before visiting U.S. colleges or speaking to local officials. Why is that? Why is that? Because what we learned in previous shows was that they've been going and trying to change local elections. They've been trying to intimidate local congressmen and officials to vote against Trump and to vote for pro-China policies. Do you think Americans in China could just go talk at universities or go talk to Chinese, mayors? You think that happens? Yeah, nice try. So why the hell are we letting it happen here? Because we're stupid. But Trump's not stupid and Pompeo's not stupid, and they're finally doing something about it. What is stupid is what we found out this week from the CDC, and I know a lot of you guys got involved with this, when the CDC said that only 6% of COVID deaths came from COVID-19, that all the rest of them came from comorbidities and a lot of comorbidities. The average person that died had 2.6 more comorbidities. But people, again, we don't lie to each other. We tell the truth, okay? And so everybody ran around saying only 10,000 people or whatever the number was, I forget the numbers, like 12,000 deaths came from, COVID and the rest were all phony. Well, that's not really true. Let me just read this to you. A lot of people are jumping on the statement that 6% of U.S. COVID deaths alone where COVID was the cause. But to use that figure to claim COVID only killed 9,000 Americans is wrong. Other causes include conditions like pneumonia, which can clearly be COVID related. A better way to use the data may be to take out cases clearly unrelated to the SARS-CoV-2. I'd include Alzheimer's, sepsis, dementia, cancer, unintentional injury. Okay. The other advantage of leaving off these conditions is that there is significant overlap in, say, diabetes and obesity. And the CDC reports the average COVID death certificate includes 2.6 other conditions. That's less likely for the conditions I included. So, okay, the 5 conditions on my list were about 50,000, deaths, assuming no double counting. The accidental deaths and poisonings alone were 5,000. So the bottom line is, it's not 167,000 people have died from COVID. But this is just an example of what's going on in our country where they can't even tell the truth. They can't give us facts. And then they wonder why we get so upset, right? Because they're lying to us all the time. So I'm going to close with this poll. And I got this from a friend. And it's a poll from out of the UK, all right? But it's something that meshes with what I'm seeing on the ground. So I'm going to cover this poll and we're going to wrap up the show, okay? So here's what it says. U.S. election 2020, Trump handed huge boost as Biden makes major mistakes, okay? Donald Trump is on course for a clear victory in the U.S. presidential election after he opened up a 3-point lead over Joe Biden in an exclusive poll for the Sunday Express. Okay. According to the latest monthly Democracy Institute Sunday Express poll, President Trump has a 48% of the popular vote over former Vice President Joe Biden's 45%. In the key swing states, the gap is even bigger, with 49% for Trump to 42% for Biden, giving the incumbent U.S. president an almost unassailable 7-point lead. There's some very interesting things in here. Significantly, the latest poll shows that 21% were positively influenced to vote for Trump after the Republican convention, but a negligible 8% were inspired to vote for Biden after the Democratic convention. Significantly, it also appears that U.S. voters have made up their minds, with a mere 3% of Trump voters and 9% of Biden voters suggesting they could change their vote on polling day. Okay? Patrick Basham, the director of Democracy Institute, said the poll confirms that Democrats completely misread the effect of the Black Lives Matter protests and riots and the desire of Americans to restore law and order in the wake of riots and anarchic protests. He said, in any political campaign, there is a moment that tells you which way the electoral wind is blowing. In this year's American presidential campaign, that moment arrived this week. The Biden campaign made this move for one simple reason. Its own internal polling numbers revealed that Democracy Institute's Sunday Express polls have shown for the past 3 months the overwhelming majority of Americans, including black voters, are opposed to your organized anarchy, looting, vandalism, mayhem, and murdering of innocent people, explicitly and implicitly cheered on by a considerable cabal of Democratic politicians, while an even larger number simply turned a blind eye. According to the poll and law and order section, it's clear that the top political issue is law and order at 37%, with the economy at 27%. And so just a couple last things that I'm going to run through on here. Battleground states basically in Florida, Trump is winning 47-44 with 9% undecided. In Minnesota, Trump is winning 48-45 with 7% undecided. In New Hampshire, Trump is winning 47-43. The Electoral College projections suggest that Trump will get 319 to Biden's 219, picking up New Hampshire and Minnesota from the states that he won previously. Interestingly, could you change your vote before Election Day? As I said before, Trump voters say only 3%, while Biden voters say 9%. And basically, this looks to me to be the truth. So the bottom line is, we're going to win this election if we do the work, if we keep doing what we're doing. We're going to win the ballot. The question is, are they going to steal it from us? And I don't have a good answer for you on that right now. I am greatly concerned, and I'm not sure what to do about it, because this whole, as I explained to you last week, this whole idea of these mail-in ballots makes no sense. And I don't know what the president's going to be able to do about this. But you can see how worried AG Barr is. I'm worried as well, because it's like Hillary Clinton said to Joe Biden, don't concede, never concede, because they're going to try to claim that this election is unfair. Remember Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. They're going to say that Trump cheated, not that they cheated, but that Trump cheated and that he had Russian help. How ridiculous is that, right? With the evidence that's been out, Adam Schiff is still pitching the Russians are trying to help Donald Trump when it's clear the Chinese communists came out and said they want Joe Biden. Why wouldn't they? They own Joe Biden. They're going to try to create chaos, and then there's going to be riots, and then we're going to see what country we really are. And you and I are going to be called to duty to defend our nation. And it doesn't have to be that way if people would take their jobs responsibility seriously and do their jobs. And we're going to keep pushing for that, but we're running out of time, folks. There's only 2 months left. So I would be very scared, and I would be talking to everyone and make sure they're very scared. And make sure that we win this by so many votes, it can't be disputed. That's what we're going to have to do. And so it can't just be that Trump wins a landslide on Election Day. He's got to win a landslide after Election Day. And we're going to do everything we can here in Ohio, and all the rest of you listen to this podcast around the country, you've got to do everything you can in your states. Because this is the most serious threat to our republic ever. Because if you don't have fair elections, you don't have a country. You sure don't have a representative democracy. That's a republic. So let's keep working. Let's keep doing what we got to do. All right. I know you're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you. Keep it up. We're going to be okay. Tell others about this podcast and this radio show. Send me information at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. Tell me what you think we should do or shouldn't do. Tell me if you think I'm not doing something that we need to get done. Most of all, please keep donating, because we're paying for these signs, these barn billboard signs. We spent over $5,000 so far on these things, and we didn't have that budgeted. And so I appreciate all those who have donated for that, but please keep helping me, because I don't want to say no to anybody that wants to put up one of those signs, because they're very, very powerful. They are making a big difference. So let's wrap it up. You're listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio show and podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and we'll be back next week.